Shabbat Shalom. So, over this week of Thanksgiving, I found myself feeling, I don't know if this is a feeling shared by all, that a day which is usually a very thankful and wonderful holiday in our family was, to some extent marred by the events going on in the world. And this question of what it means to observe a day of thanks for our country, for our people in this moment. It's not really our people that have the day, but we have other ways of doing thanks. And something kept sticking in my mind, a Mishnah, all week long. And I want to read part of it to you, and I am going to actually ask us to talk about it together for just a little bit. So the end of the Mishnah of Masechet Brachot, a Mishnah mostly dealing with how one says different blessings, or when one's supposed to say blessings, or what the languages of those blessings, has the last Mishnah of the entire book begins, Chayav Adam Levarech al Hara'a Kishem Shehu Mevarech al HaTova. I'll say that again. So a person is obligated to bless al hara'ah, to bless on the bad, the evil, the wicked, whatever ra'ah means. Kishem, just as shehu mevarech al hatovah, just as someone blesses on the good. So one is obligated, according to the Mishnah, the final obligation the Mishnah puts on us as it goes with blessings. One is obligated to bless on the bad just as one blesses on the good. Now, if this does not make immediate sense to you, you are in great company. Because most of the commentaries on this Mishnah, even the Mishnah itself, which I'm cheating and not reading the second half of it to you, which tries to explain it, but even the Mishnah itself, which almost never explains itself with a verse, in this moment explains itself with a verse, because this is hard to understand. But before we look at what some of our esteemed predecessor rabbis have said, I think that we should think about it on our own. So I want you to take a second. You can think about it by yourself. If you're sitting next to someone that you'd like to discuss it with, you should talk to them. If you're sitting next to someone you wouldn't like to discuss it with, you should still talk to them. And don't let them know that you thought that. So the question is, what does it mean? What is the Torah or the Mishnah asking us to do when it says that we are supposed to bless on the bad just as we bless on the good? Okay? Give me, it can be a very specific idea of what it means, a general idea of what it means. If you don't know, hopefully the person next to you does. Take a good 36 seconds to talk about it. Ready, set, go.
I'm not available right now, but I will be.
Like it keeps going like these things. You don't know what's bad or what's good. You don't know what's good. Like obviously, some maybe it's debatable. And so like there's concept of in the moment. Don't really know what's good, and obviously there's some examples. But most cases. Like how so
All right, 18 more seconds. All right. I can kind of tell when we switch from answering the question to schmoozing. And I'm hearing I know, you started schmoozing. I know, yeah, I can see. I also know who just turns to their partner and is like, oh gosh, this guy again. All right. So who has some thoughts on, and I'll shout it out loud so that everyone can hear. But who has, or we can use the microphone if they don't both work. We can't. All right, who's going to donate to get 2 mics that work? Apparently, no. Okay, so who's got? Please. So, what does it mean to bless the bad as well as you bless the good? Okay. Oh, interesting. That's not where so it's looking backwards, going for the larger picture. When something that we see as ra'ah, as bad, if we knew enough. Basically, going with the idea there is no such thing as just pure evil. And if we zoom out far enough, if we look back, we would understand how something came to be and see that it isn't just purely ra'ah, it has reasons. Interesting, very nice. Who else has a thought of where this? Well, I got to go to Ken first because otherwise he won't, turn my heat on. Yeah.
There's an old Buddhist proverb I remember that starts with basically a man breaks his leg. It's like, oh, that's so bad, it's awful. And then there's a war, and they're conscripting for war, and he doesn't get drafted. It's like it's good, and it keeps going, but in the moment,
okay,
you don't actually know what's bad or good.
Okay, so hi Zeb, how are you? So great. So let it be noted that our executive director is quoting Buddhist proverbs here in the shul, which the idea, and it was that someone breaks their leg, but then because they've broken their leg, they miss out on being drafted or something like that. So if we want, we could go Rambam instead of Buddha on this. Because Maimonides, in his commentary on this Mishnah, says specifically this idea, which is what we think is ra'ah right now might end up actually being good for some reason that we can't see. And so when it says to bless the bad as you bless the good, it literally means to bless bad things when they happen in the hopes that they'll turn out to be good, right? It's not saying it's not bad right now, but maybe there will be some good that comes from this in either a, broken leg or sliding door situation, something like that. Okay. Who else has one on how this is? Yeah, please. Either Chavruta pair can go, Ed or Elliot, whatever you want. Go ahead.
So I think there's usually a lesson in the bad that you can learn.
Okay.
And that is a blessing in disguise.
Gotcha. So it's not the Kravitsky, it will become good. It's bad. It's totally bad. You broke your leg, you're not getting out of a draft, it's just bad, but there might be some lesson that you can learn from it, some wisdom. So the blessing then comes not from what is going to happen, but what you might learn from it. Very nice. Yeah, Larry. Okay. Nice. Okay, if everything is God's intention and God's doing, then it's not up for us. It's all good. It's all God, right? And so, by the way, this is exactly what the Yerushalmi, the Talmud Yerushalmi says about this, right? It says when a king of flesh and blood does something good, everyone's super happy about it. When a king of flesh and blood, makes a bad decree, like a prison sentence or something, everyone's upset. But God is special in that when God does something good, we all sing about it. And even when God does something bad, we all sing about it. And this is brought by later commentaries on this Mishnah as well. The idea that when it says you shall bless the bad as you bless the good, it literally means sing with a joyful heart when something bad happens to you. And that comes from this idea that it's all part of God's plan. And so maybe that means it's going to be good. Maybe it means you're going to learn a lesson from it. But no matter what, we just sing about it because even though it's bad for us in this moment, it's part of God's plan. Okay? Very nice. Who's got more? Yes, yeah, we're going to take this whole row in a second, and we'll keep going. Yeah, please, Adam. Ah, okay. Great. Gotcha. So the blessing on bad, you're sort of giving it's very specific. The blessing, here's a hot off the press movie reference coming right up, guys. I'm blessing God that I know I'm not in the Matrix. Right? I know that sorry. Whoosh, that was not a good reference. But anyways, yeah, come on. I was like looking over here. Thank you. The idea is that what it means to be human, to live in this world, is to live in a world of free will and good and bad. And that if we didn't have any bad in our lives, we would be in Gan Eden. Please God, may it return again. But right now, that's not what's happening. And so we bless God for bad because it lets us know that we're in a world of good and bad. It lets us know we're in a world of free will, and that necessarily that's going to involve some good and some bad. I think let's do like one more. Yeah, please. Right. Great. So it's okay. Can you add a Rashi? Could you? Yeah. Right. Great. Okay. Shkoch. So what? I'm gonna repeat it, guys. Don't worry. I'm gonna. It's not gonna be as good, but I'm gonna repeat it. Yeah, it's all I do is repeat. So I'm just saying, thanks. Right. So okay. So we've got two ideas here. One, both worried about this sort of quietism and piety that comes from this, like gamze l'toiva, oh, whatever happens, it happens for good, and I'm going to just sort of let God take the wheel and go through my life, and everything that happens just happens for a reason, and do nothing about it, which the Rashi in our commentary said has led to not a great sort of theological stance for the Jews, not necessarily a great active stance for the Jews as well. Throughout history, we weren't so active in our own fate. Perhaps, you know more than I about why we did things in our history than I do, Rabbi, but perhaps because of this feeling of, oh, bless on the bad as well as the good, and it's all going to be fine, just keep schlepping along, until in many ways, Zionism and the advent of sort of us taking the reins of history again and trying to be active in our world. And I want to keep going with this because the question then comes, so where do we get the courage to move forward from this, right? Which, if I agree with you that I don't want to read this Mishnah as just as simple everything's for the best, God knows best, Shabbat Shalom, move on, right? So then either it becomes our job to find a lesson in the bad, right? Our job to try to turn the bad into something good, which might be what we're here to do. And by the way, there's one, I can't not say it. There's one commentary that we didn't get, which is the Tosafot Yom Tov, who says, just because something seems bad for you, doesn't mean it's not good for someone else. And so perhaps the blessing on the Ra'ah is a hope that whatever happens that's bad for me, God willing, at least is good for someone else. That's good, right? That at least God's doing something right. Last one, Rabbi, and then I'll take the last one, I guess. So yeah, one Rabbi, then two. Okay. Okay. Great. Gotcha. So Rabbi Cooper brings up a very good distinction between bad as it sort of happens, just a misfortune, a bad occurrence, versus evil perpetrated by another person, right? Now I would argue that ra'ah could mean either, and that when the Mishnah says that you have to bless on the bad, it might mean actually the wickedness of others, as well as it means the misfortunes that happen in the world. But what I want to leave us with is someone who had to do a lot of this work in his lifetime, a rabbi known as the Eish Kodesh, a rabbi who was a rabbi in Poland in the 30s and 40s, and I left the book up there. I can go get it, but the Vayetzei Rebbe, and he writes about this parsha. He notes two things. And in a sermon that he gave in 1939, he writes, one, if you notice the angels in the dream, in the ladder, what direction are they going? That's right, you're both right. Up and down. Actually, it says down and up. Right? And he uses that as a way to say God should and can be found in descent as well as ascent, in times when things are down and times when things are good. And he goes further and he notes that in this parsha, when God is speaking to Yaakov, God speaks to Yaakov saying, I will guard you twice. The first time he says, Ani Omar Alav, Omer Alav, I will stand over you, which Rashi says means to protect you. And then the second time he says, Anochi, I will go with you. I will be with you. And the Vayetzei Rebbe notes this weird, why is it Ani in the first time and Anochi in the second time? This is going to take just a second, but I promise we're going to get there. So Anochi versus Ani, there's one letter that's been added, it's the Kuf, right? The Chaf that we add there. And the Vayetzei Rebbe quotes the Midrash that is actually an acronym for all of the different ways in which God will be with you in the future. That Anochi, the Nun is for Nefesh, and the Chaf is for Kitav, for writing. I will be with you in your soul. I will be with you in your writing. I will be with you in, I don't remember what the Yud is. I left the book up there. But he says, therefore, what we have to do in our days when tsarot are all around us, remember, he's writing in 39, when tsarot are all around us, when we see wickedness everywhere, our job in the moment, says he, is to do two things. One is to have patience and hope that God will rescue us and save us. Because even though we don't like it, that idea of a Jewish ability to pray and hope for God to be there, even if we can't feel like we actively have the power to control our fate, is real. We really do have that ability, and it is a birthright of every Jew that we can pray to God in moments when we feel like we have no control. But he says a second thing. He says the other thing we have to do in moments when the tsar, the pain, the oppression is all around us, when fear is all around us, is we examine our holy words, our katav. Because that is where God lives. God told us in Parsha Vayetzei that God will be with us wherever we go in two ways. In that book and in our hearts, in our nefesh. And so our job when we feel like there is sorrow everywhere, our job when we feel like there's oppression everywhere, is to find God in the books that God gave us and in the souls that God gave us. And when we examine those to find God and bring it out, we are able to take some control over our spirituality and our ability in this moment and this time. And he ends his sermon there and says, so everyone needs to do that. And what I would say for all of us is that is how, if we feel like we don't know where to find a way to give thanks, if we feel like we don't know how to sing or be happy in these moments, if we want to find ways to turn the blessings of the wicked into a blessing of good, we examine our tradition, we examine our hearts, and we look inside to find God in those moments so that we can turn ra'ah into tovah, or at least find a way to say blessings over the ra'ah and the tovah. Shabbat shalom.